This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. It's been a big week for the Satanic Vatican and for Pope Francis. You probably saw the videos I did talking about the preparation for Project Bluebeam, as the Vatican has come out and talked about how to declare something a supernatural occurrence, a supernatural event, a sign from God. They're going to be the judge and the jury, and they're going to be the ones who decide and declare when they roll out Project Bluebeam that it is, in fact, a message and a sign from God, because they're, in fact, going to be the ones who are a part of the Great Deception. They already are a part of the Great Deception. For anybody out there that thinks that the Pope and that the Vatican has anything to do with Jesus Christ, it's quite the opposite. And when you could see a tree by looking right at its fruits, right? A tree is known by its fruits. And we're going to look at this interview that Pope Francis just did on 60 Minutes. I'm going to take parts of this for you to see so you can understand what they're doing. They are lukewarming the church, which is done by design. They are blurring the lines, and of course, they're calling for globalism. He talks about, in this first clip I will show you, global indifference, because he's saying that we need global unity, and that means a new world order. But to the sheeple out there, it means we all need to just get along. That means when he talks about wiping your hands clean, that people shouldn't be ignoring any of the world issues that are coming directly out of the Vatican. The Vatican and Israel are controlling, they're one and the same, but they are controlling and manipulating the world events. They're manufacturing this. And he talks about in this clip how we don't need people to wipe their hands clean. Too many people are ignoring these world events because they need you to engage in these events. They need you to feel empowered by these events for change. These are all things they're manufacturing. They're asking you to call for change. They're asking you to get involved in these things because it's psychological. They are trying to wheel in a global government. So when he talks about global indifference, they're asking for global unity, which means a new world order.
The globalization of indifference.
Want me to state it plainly? People wash their hands. There are so many Pontius Pilates on the loose out there. See what is happening. The wars, the injustice, the crimes. That's okay, and wash their hands. It's indifference. That is what happens when the heart hardens and becomes indifferent. We have to get our hearts to feel again. We cannot remain indifferent in the face of such human dramas. Globalization of indifference is a very ugly disease.
So again, wiping your hands clean of this is not the answer, right? Just like ignoring the voting system. They tell you the same thing in America, right? People who don't vote are part of the problem, right? You got to be involved in one of the parties or you're part of the problem because you need to be involved in it. You need to be a part of the game. That's what he's calling for. So don't wipe your hands clean of what's going on in the world. Global indifference, saying that you don't want to be a part of this, that's a problem because we need to unite. We need to globally unite. So we need to gaslight you into these events and make you care so that we could deceive you further. That's exactly what he's saying. Now, the next thing I'm going to play for you is hilarious because he talks about conservatives. He talks about how having a conservative attitude is suicidal, right? So not adapting and adopting change, not going along with a new world order plan is suicidal. It makes you suicidal. And this is a common theme we're seeing across all platforms, right? They're adopting ideologies like ours. They're taking what we all talk about, and they're saying that there's mental health behind it because they want to ban speech like this, speaking against the government, speaking against the left and right. They want to make that a mental health concern. That people out there, they're so warped that they don't even believe that your vote counts. They don't even believe the left and right is real. They're suicidal in a sense because there's no hope. They're saying that there's no hope in man because there is no hope in man. There's only hope in God. Don't put your hope in man, but they want you to put your hope in man. That's how this whole two-party system works. And that's how the whole voting, mirage that is the voting system works. It's to give you the illusion that you're empowered. But listen to him talk about conservative ideologies. And this is, again, gaslighting, which you'll see a lot here. Gaslighting conservatives, which is done by design. But take a look at what he says here about a suicidal attitude, being conservative, refusing to go along with the New World Order.
You used an adjective, conservative. That is, conservative is one who clings to something and does not want to see beyond that. It is a suicidal attitude, because one thing is to take tradition into account, but quite another is to be closed up inside a dogmatic box.
So again, anybody who refuses to go along with the New World Order will be deemed suicidal by nature. There's something wrong with you. It's a negative attitude. How can you not be accepting of this? How can you not be going along with this? That's dangerous. It's a threat, right? So as it continues, what's really important to note is as we get into anti-Semitism, right? Because this is part of the huge deception that's going on. If you criticize the state of Israel, you're considered anti-Semitic. And he can't even keep his words right, where he talks about, well, it's okay to criticize, but you can't be anti, right? They're one and the same. That's what they are, one and the same. But he says you could criticize the government of Israel. You could criticize Palestine. You could criticize any government, but you can't be anti a people. But in fact, what's going on in Israel, and the term anti-Semitism is to protect the people who are behind the building of this New World Order, the people who are behind the current sabotaging of all of our ways of life around the earth. This specific group of people, who in fact are a people who adopted and hijacked a piece of land, which is the state of Israel, which is a military industrial complex. That's what Israel is. But if you question that, you're deemed anti-Semitic. And of course, they're always going to use terms like this to silence the truth.
I don't know if you've seen in the United States big protests, growing anti-Semitism.
And anti-Semitism is an ideology, and it is bad. Any anti is always bad. You can criticize one government or another, the government of Israel, the Palestinian government. You can criticize all you want, but not anti a people, neither anti-Palestinian nor anti-Semitic. No.
So again, you're anti-Semitic if you question Israel, period, right? Well, you could criticize the government, but at what degree can you criticize the government, right? They're pretending like you can criticize the Israeli government for their approach with Palestine. But if you actually question how this government, how this state of Israel came to in 1948, well, then you're anti-Semitic, of course. And if you go into the teachings at all, well, then you're really anti-Semitic, which you can't get into here on YouTube. So as he continues on, this is how we start to see them gaslighting, right? And this is how we start to see the church lean towards Democrats, lean towards what they call liberalism, being progressive, right? You see those terms, conservative and progressive, used quite often. These are deceptive terms that they use, right? We could all just be normal and have normal opinions on things, but they don't want that. Normal opinion on things would be like, hey, people shouldn't be castrating themselves. That's called normal. But these are the people who are gaslighting everybody into utter insanity on the earth right now. So when he talks about the border, it's pretty incredible that he talks about calling it madness, but you could see that he's clearly trying to gaslight, right? That it's madness that anybody would think that we should close the border to people, right? But who is it that divided the nations? So God's the one who divided the nations, and the Pope obviously knows that. But the Pope and the people in the Vatican, the people in power in Israel, they all want to bring about a new world order. And to bring about a new world order, there can't be borders, right? Because it's God who divided the nations. It's God who put up the walls. It's God who scrambled the language. These are things that they won't tell regular Christians out there. They need regular Christians out there to think that this is about hate, right? So we're supposed to just let people in across all borders because we're supposed to have, like he says in the beginning, no global indifference, global unity. Here he is gaslighting people with the border.
But migrants sometimes suffer a lot.
And I don't know if you've heard, but the state of Texas is attempting to shut down a Catholic charity that offers undocumented migrants humanitarian assistance.
That is madness, sheer madness. To close the border and leave them there, that is madness. The migrant has to be received.
So again, that's done by design, right? Obviously, most conservatives out there that hear that will start saying, well, it sounds like the Pope's a Democrat. He had Gavin Newsom there. Talked greatly about Gavin Newsom and the climate agenda. So you could start to see that they're pulling the church, in a sense, away from conservatism into the lukewarming of the church, which is done by design. Now, many Christians might not see this, but there will be those MAGA Christians who all they'll need to see is the stuff about the border, and they'll be gaslit into being divided from the church, which, again, this is by design. What they're doing right now is separating people. And this last clip I'll play for you is a perfect example, right? We start hearing about what? We start hearing about, well, women, right? The Pope has started to bring more women in. Now the Pope's not going to anoint a woman as a pope or anything along those lines, a priest, etc., because, he doesn't want to he doesn't want to be too obvious with how, the Vatican is set up against God. They don't want to be too obvious going against God's word. So they'll keep promoting the women within the church, but they won't make them a priest yet. But he talks about how the church is changing, how the Vatican is changing. They're adapting, they're moving along. with the signs of the times, right? The LGBT stuff that he's all on board with. Eventually, I won't be surprised to hear him on board with Planned Parenthood, but we can't get there yet because the Vatican and the Catholic Church is still needed to deceive many people. But here he is talking about being more open and being more accepting. And these are things that we're going to continue to see in the lukewarming of the church. Now, we can look at it and we can go, well, we know that the Vatican's corrupt. We know the Vatican, they're not really Christian. But the overall message of the church, this filters down. This isn't just Catholics. Christians out there are going to get brainwashed into a lot of this antichrist gibberish about love and acceptance. Remember, Satan masquerades as an angel of light. Satan masquerades as an angel of light. The Antichrist will come in the name of peace and love. So you could see where this is headed. Listen to the Pope.
I want to tell you that I really liked your expression when you told me it shows that you feel these things very deeply.
I think that's why so many people have found hope with you, because you have been more open and accepting than other previous leaders of the church.
You have to be open to everything. The church is like that. We are all fundamentally good. Yes, there are some rogues and sinners, but the heart itself is good.
So it's very, very easy for anyone out there with discernment to see that the Vatican itself is being set up against God. That's what it is. It's set up against God's word. They just can't openly be over the top, right? Oh, he's in on the LGBT. He wants to bless gay marriage, but he can't yet. So they're continuing to move the sticks towards all of these things that would be defiant of God's word. Well, we could bless the gay man, but we won't bless the marriage, right? So people out there go, well, yeah, okay. But eventually it goes from blessing the gay man to blessing the gay marriage, because we have to go along with the globalization of things, right? Unity, globalization, acceptance, tolerance. These are all themes of the Antichrist. And the Vatican is going to be at the core of those things. They already are at the core of those things. So there's going to be Christians that come out of this and start saying, well, you know what? The Pope is corrupt, right? Because they're going to hear the stuff with the border. That's all they'll need to hear. But many Christians to this day continually fall for the deception of the Vatican. Right? They're mesmerized by it. We look at it and we go, nobody's buying this anymore, right? The Pope is, he's pro-gays, he's pro-this. They're becoming too, liberal in a sense, right? That's very obvious. It should be very obvious. But millions of people still show up and bow at the feet of the Pope. And you often I sit there and I say, look at these people that are bowing to a man. Did God himself anoint the Pope? No. Who anointed the Pope? Man anointed the Pope. Thus, should any of us actually give a crap about the Pope? No, of course we should. But many out there drool over the Pope. Many Christians who go to church every week, right, who are very self-righteous in their ways, that think that criticizing the Pope is criticizing God. And that's all done by design. This is how they lukewarm the church. This is how they manufacture Christian behavior, by telling you that these are things that we need to start evolving with. And globalism is the ultimate anti-God. I try to tell people that. They're like, what? Because they start thinking like, well, what's the big deal? I travel to other countries. I see people friendly with people in other countries, right? What's wrong with globalization? They say that. And they don't realize that the Tower of Babel specifically, it was God who divided the nations deliberately. Everything that God has ever done has been deliberate. He deliberately divided the nations. He scrambled the languages. This was God's design for the world to function this way right now that it is functioning. These people, since the Tower of Babel, have been trying to recreate it, have been trying to bring about globalization. And the Pope and the church are trying to do that. And they're openly telling you this, right? Because if you don't engage and you have indifference about things happening in other countries, you're washing your hands clean, right? So he's trying to say in that clip about global indifference is that if you don't care about what's happening in another country, that's a problem. That's enough of people washing their hands clean. We need to engage in other countries' problems, because that ultimately leads to globalization. And that's what they're trying to do here. So the Pope comes out. He talks about globalization and how it's a very ugly disease. He talks about, well, it's okay to criticize the government, but you can't hate them. It's okay to criticize the government, but you can't be anti-Israel, right? Even though it's one and the same, because it was created in 1948. It isn't a people. It's a hijacked piece of land, which is very clear. And I go into more detail on the website about that, and many, many, many videos, as well as many documentaries that are over there, which you could find if you search about what the state of Israel currently is and how Christians are being deceived, right? He goes into gaslighting about the border. And he goes into, of course, change and how finally there's a pope that's willing to change and evolve. And, well, he might not bless gay marriages as he blesses the gay man, right? And little by little, we start seeing the church go down this path. And all it takes is time for people to accept the satanic agenda and the satanic doctrine and fall away. And that's what's happening right now, a falling away. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.